Hi, and welcome to this Freedom Matters conversation. We take an inside look at the effort to defend free speech, religious liberty, parental rights, and the sanctity of life. My name is Jay Hobbs. I'm your host, and today I'm joined by Denise Harle. Denise is Senior Counsel and the Director for the Center for Life at Alliance Defending Freedom. Denise, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jay.
Now, Denise, this last week we put out a Freedom Matters video where you tell us about the Dobbs decision from the Supreme Court. By any measure, the biggest Supreme Court decision of our lifetime or in the last 50 years. Just give us a rundown of what that case means and what the viewers ought to know about it.
Absolutely. So in Dobbs, the U.S. Supreme Court finally corrected the gross judicial error in Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court said that Roe was egregiously wrong, which we all knew, and that nothing in the text, structure, or history of the Constitution supports a so-called right to abortion. In fact, nothing at all in our nation's culture suggests that there would ever be a constitutional right to take an innocent human life. To the contrary, the Supreme Court pointed out that states' laws at the time that Roe was decided overwhelmingly protected life from the moment of conception. The Supreme Court explained that the Roe decision has been completely unworkable. It's caused all sorts of problems in our court system where courts have been unable to apply the confusing and completely made up tests that were stated in Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey. In addition, Roe was a travesty for the democratic process. And so the Supreme Court in Dobbs explained how that power grab by the 7 male justices in the majority in Roe v. Wade took away the ability of the people, the American people, to have laws that actually protect life. And now the power has been returned to the people so that states and voters can fully affirm the dignity of motherhood and protect unborn life. So for all those reasons, Dobbs explains that Roe was unjustified from the beginning and needed to be corrected as soon as possible, and that 50 years of this judicial error has been a horrible tragedy and a stain on our nation. The court also noted that states do have the ability and the justification to protect life from its earliest stages. So the Supreme Court in Dobbs laid out interests that states can be advancing through their pro-life laws to ensure that unborn babies are protected from the earliest moments, that women are protected from the unnecessary and dangerous harms of abortion, and that unborn babies are protected from things like discriminatory abortions or abortions that cause pain, because we know that just within a few weeks of conception, babies do actually respond and feel pain. And certainly that's what happens in a barbaric abortion procedure. So what happened in Dobbs was a tremendous victory for life. It was a correction of what had been a gross constitutional error. And it was a restoration of the people's ability in America to protect life. And I do believe we have a culture that wants to do that.
Yeah, Denise, thanks for that great rundown and summary of this. As we look at just kind of the bottom line of what this decision means, which is that it hands the question of abortion back to the states where they can protect unborn life at the earliest stages of pregnancy. What is it that you think people, as you've gone around and talked about this, what do you think people get wrong most of all about Dobbs?
I think people don't understand just how extreme Roe v. Wade was and how extreme America's abortion policy has been under Roe versus Wade. We are one of only a handful of nations around the world that allows elective abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy. Others in that category include China and North Korea, which are totalitarian regimes and notorious human rights violators. It's absolutely barbaric to think of ending a child's life in the 9th month of pregnancy, and it's not what Americans support. In addition, 75% of nations around the world don't allow abortion at all or limit it to at most 12 weeks. And even though the polling is a little bit mixed in America in terms of pro-choice, pro-life, and sort of in the middle, what we do know is that an overwhelming majority of Americans would not support elective abortion past the first trimester. And I hope that we continue to build a culture of life where we recognize that life is a human right at all stages. But even for now, where the American people are at is a very different place than the very gross regime that Roe threw us into.
Yeah, and speaking of again, handing it back to states and the people to make their own decisions about this. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice, was one of the most vocal critics of Roe's reasoning. Why was she such a critic, and what does that kind of tell us about maybe that disconnect that you're getting at between what people actually think about abortion and what they think about Roe and Dobbs?
Well, I think Justice Ginsburg knew that it was not in the Constitution that there is some sort of privacy right that has protected an ability to take an innocent human life. She knew that it was wrongly rooted in a fictional place in the Constitution that doesn't exist. And so what ended up happening in Roe v. Wade, because there was no constitutional basis for it, is these men just made up a policy. And it was unsupported, it was unsubstantiated, and it was going to be unworkable because policymaking belongs in the legislature. So if we're making a policy, that's something that, now the states have the ability to protect the health and welfare and safety of their citizens, and the voters have the ability to decide who they want to elect to enact what sorts of pro-life policies. And what Roe did was to completely stop that debate and throw us into a really frustrating deadlock where we were an extremist nation, which is absolutely not where we wanted to be.
Denise, speaking about state level legislation that now the people are able to make their own decisions, the law that actually successfully challenged Roe v. Wade, which you and the legal team at ADF were honored to work alongside Mississippi to defend that law all the way through the Supreme Court. That law protects babies up to 15 weeks gestation from the violence of abortion. A lot of people think that, or saying in the media at least, that 15 weeks makes us extreme by allowing any restrictions at that stage. Why is that not the case?
Yeah, that's just more misinformation from the abortion industry. The truth is, only 8 nations in the world allow elective abortion 20 weeks or later. In fact, all of Western Europe, if you just look at their laws, are somewhere in the 12 to 14 week range. So we are still more extreme than nations like France, for example. So I think, the sad reality about Roe v. Wade is that it has desensitized us, and to where many of us who never knew an America without Roe v. Wade have been in this environment, and where we were told that it must be this way. And so we now have the opportunity to reimagine the sanctity of life, to sort of have those blinders pulled off of us and look around the world and think about who we want to be in terms of leaders in human rights and in protecting human life.
Okay, Denise, in the Freedom Matters episode that we put out last week, you said that women don't need abortion to succeed in society. And the truth is, we never have, is how you phrased it. Let's talk about the way that Roe, and especially then Casey, created and furthered this idea that women need abortion to succeed in society. Why is that not true?
Well, it was never true. And Roe and Casey have very misogynistic language in them that says that women who are mothers may have a distressful life in future, or that women need abortion in order to succeed in society. Real advocates of women's rights have historically always been against abortion, for the very reason that it's demeaning to women, and it actually sort of reinforces a male-dominated culture, where women's bodies and women's special role as mothers is degraded. Now we have, in the past several decades, even with abortion, we have the significant advancement of legal protections for women in the workplace, laws against pregnancy discrimination. We have all sorts of programs that support new moms and pregnant moms. And one of my favorite developments since the decision in Roe is just the amazing explosion of the pregnancy help movement. At the time of Roe, there may have been just a couple of pregnancy help centers. Now there are more than 3,000 pregnancy resource centers around the nation that stand ready to support moms facing difficult circumstances in their pregnancy, with all sorts of free resources, diapers, formula, maternity clothes, car seats, and even things like job training, counseling, parenting education. There are so many ways now how women are able to be successful, happy mothers, have educations through even online schooling and night school, as well as so many jobs now that are remote and that accommodate childcare in different ways. So, it was wrong at the time of Roe, but now it's just even more obvious that women are succeeding. Some of the most successful women we see in business and media, in the nonprofit world, are mothers.
Yeah, and it's telling, I think, that a lot of abortion supporters and advocates in the public square are now attacking pregnancy centers even more than they have in the past, which has been kind of a long-standing thing, but they've definitely dialed it up since this decision. Denise, thank you so much for your time. That wraps up part one of our conversation, where we have talked through kind of the overlay of Dobbs and what that means in our country. Next time around, we're going to be talking about what this means at an individual state level. So we hope you join us then. And until then, we'll see you. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. Before you leave, click like on the video, click subscribe on the channel, and make sure you click that notification bell so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.